Welcome back to Major Misconduct. I'm the Major Scott Taylor. He's the Misconduct Curt Keelback. We are live on a beautiful day in Winnipeg, Manitoba from the Salisbury House on Leela. Great place. Come on down, have coffee, have breakfast, enjoy a morning or an afternoon or an evening at the Sal's on Leela. I want to talk about the NHL trade deadline because we mentioned the Jets. We're going to talk a little bit about the Leafs coming up, but there's a lot of other things going on. The Columbus Blue Jackets have said that Rick Nash could be available for the right price. Do you think Rick Nash is going to move in this trade deadline?
I kind of suspect that he will, and it's going to be interesting to see where he goes. So many teams, well, every team in the league can use Rick Nash. He's the first liner no matter where he goes. But I take a look at the list of places where I think he might go to, and somehow the Los Angeles Kings strike me as being the perfect fit. That's a team that is very strong defensively, particularly since the coaching change. They've got very good goaltending in Jonathan Quick. They're lacking up front in a way of putting the puck in the net, and man, that's the guy who can do it.
Yeah, I think they've been very disappointed with Dustin Penner. They would love to be able to unload him in Los Angeles, but you get a guy as big as Penner who plays Penner's game, only can actually score, and that changes everything with LA. LA just brought up two young players, Dwight King and Jordan Nolan. They scored goals in their first game up. This is a team that desperately needs scoring. Daryl Sutter wants them to score more. I think Rick Nash might be a perfect fit in Los Angeles. Now, we talk about other teams doing things or not doing things. The Chicago Blackhawks keep talking about getting a defenseman. The Philadelphia Flyers keep talking about getting a defenseman to replace Chris Pronger. There aren't enough defensemen to go around. Do you think any big-time defensive name is going to move over the next 10 days before the February 27th deadline?
I can't think of any offhand that I think are going to move, and it's always tough to speculate on trades. We see an awful lot of we see way too much of it on Sportsnet and on TSN. But as far as that goes, you hear about Jack Johnson. Maybe he might be part of a package if you're
that
talking
would bring
about
Rick Nash
the
LA.
LA Kings. Yeah. So now, whether or not he's that big a name, as far as you're talking about, there's been mentions of Shen, by example, moving as well. But as far as a huge name, a top drawer defenseman, that's something that general managers will never trade unless they're absolutely back to the wall. And look what happened in Winnipeg when they traded Dave Babbage many years ago. They live to regret that forever. And no, you just don't trade a good defenseman because that's the foothold of your franchise.
Well, you've got an unrestricted free agent here in Winnipeg, Johnny Oduya. His name has been mentioned with Columbus. His name
is that a big name defenseman?
I think under the circumstances, he's a $4 million a year guy who's got experience. He skates very well. Probably too expensive for Winnipeg. At his age, probably they're not going to pay him the money that he wants. He might be a guy where you mentioned earlier when we talked about the Jets, he'd be a guy you can move to a team for prospects.
Yeah, that's the kind of guy that you can move along and try to get somebody young to come along in the future.
Now, having said all of that, do you think there's going to be a blockbuster? We have national television programs on 3 sports channels that start at 7 o'clock in the morning and go all day. And since the salary cap came in 2005, we have not really had a blockbuster. We've had some big trades, but no blockbusters last year. I can't believe that they had to sit there for 7 or 8 hours and try to come up with something to say when virtually nothing happened.
I enjoy it, actually. I never watch it, to be truthful. I tune in every once in a while.
I watched it.
And
it was hard.
Yeah, and I watched Darren Millard or James Duthie, and they're actually pleading with general managers, please make a deal so we get something to talk about. And, of course, they get pretty excited, particularly Bob McKenzie, at the very thought of a trade. You know what? I don't like trades. I mean, I like a certain amount of trades, and if Rick Nash gets trades, that'll be your blockbuster. But that is one of the problems with sport. There are too many trades. You like to establish an identity to a team. You like to know who the people are coming in. When you think back to Wayne Gretzky, you don't think of him as a St. Louis Blue or even a New York Ranger. You think of him as an Edmonton Oiler and maybe a Los Angeles Kings. The more they move around, the more less credibility they have. Steve Yzerman, you knew when the Detroit Red Wings were coming to town that Steve Yzerman was going to be on that hockey team, or in the early days, Brendan Shanahan. But even he got moved around, and no, it's good to maintain the personnel, and you build through the youth. You make some trades. You have to make some trades. But, Ray Bourque went to Colorado. That wound up being a good trade because it put them over.
Well, and it got Ray Bourque a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, it got him a Stanley Cup. But still, when you think of him, you think of him as a Boston Bruin. And if you don't establish an identity with people when they come into town, and you say, oh, yeah, the Florida Panthers come. Who they got now? They used to have Weiss, but I don't know who they got now.
Chris Versteeg is their star, and he won a cup in Chicago. Yeah, there you go. We're going to come back and have some fun because we're going to join our national sports networks and talk all about the Toronto Maple Leafs. There is only one team in Canada, right?
The Leafs.
We're gonna have some fun with it. We'll be back on Major Misconduct.